Good afternoon and welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Economic Forum. I am your host, Yusuf, and today we are joined by our economic professor, Professor Abbass Mohammed El-Khamis. Do watch us live this and every Monday on our Facebook page at Walkia TV. Like, share, and leave a comment at the comment section below. Today on the show, we are going to hold discussions on monetary policy and currency management. As we have seen that the city is now currently appreciating, can the city sustain this momentum? We are going to hold discussions with our professor on the show right now. Do stay tuned and also leave your comment at the comment section below. Professor, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Welcome as usual. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, we are pleased to have you on the show right now. Professor, today we are going to hold discussions on monetary policy and currency management. Looking at the nature of our city right now, I think comparatively to the previous 6 to 7 or 8 months ago, we have seen that the city is now appreciating and doing much better. So, what do you think are the driving factors or the key factors which is leading to this situation whereby the city is performing very well right now?
All right. Thank you once again for having me and Welcare TV. Thank you for a good job done informing citizens, ensuring that citizens are well informed about, economic policy, especially Ghana's economic growth. And
Yeah,
it's true that we experiencing, impressive city performance against dollar, which is
yeah,
the world transaction currency. There are
yeah.
a couple of reasons here why we are seeing this. And I would like to take you through four key reasons I've identified that
Okay,
is embedded in the reasons why we are here today.
okay,
What we've seen is appreciation of dollars,
mm,
appreciation of cedi, with the
yeah,
exchange rate improving from 15.50 to the US dollar in mid-April to now 13.30 as of May 7 at the time I was looking. This is
okay,
a positive movement that has been attributed to several factors. Number one is
mm,
the weakening of the US dollars. Okay,
okay,
globally, the US dollar index has declined to levels not seen since early 2022, which is partly due to shifting investor sentiment and concerns over the US fiscal sustainability. This
okay,
is according to Bloomberg, May 2025. And what
mm,
you've seen is the US tariff and all the issues we have here, which means that there is outflows of investment in the US economy. And you
okay,
have to also remember that the Ghana's economy, until it's structured in a way that is sustainable, when the US sneezes, we will catch pneumonia.
mm-hmm,
That's number one. Number two, I can't ignore the fact that Ghana has done a good job with gold board and has improved their gold reserves from 9 tons to 31 tons as
okay,
of the report on May 9. So that has provided a stronger buffer against external shocks. So that
mm,
is also meaning that we have what do you call it, foreign reserves coming in. So we have foreign currency in dollars coming in. So that is the reason why we're seeing the improvement. Another
okay,
reason is also an improved forex liquidity, which means that the Bank of Ghana, through their market interventions, if you were following what they're doing, they've eased the forex supply constraints, which means
mm,
that with the reserves coming in from the gold board, they're able to reduce speculative pressures. And overall economic atmosphere is good for Ghana. And
okay,
finally, what we are ignoring is the fact that under the guidance of IMF and the World Bank, we have not pursued any significant fiscal expenditure. So
okay,
if we're not spending, all right, we are easing pressure on the demand side in terms of when we begin to start infrastructure development like roads and highways, our demand for dollars is going to go up. And when
okay,
demand for dollar for those projects goes up, because number one, you need the machinery. Number
mm-hmm,
two, you need the experts and the materials you need to pursue serious economic development efforts. So
okay,
these are all capital intensive. When you begin to spend money in that way, you need dollars. So the moment we go in to start funding these projects, is gonna
mm-hmm,
is gonna increase the demand for dollars, and that will also improve the dollar against the city.
Okay.
So I don't think it's too what do you call it? It's a smart decision to think that we overperforming. We have done nothing at this point. Ghana
Okay.
structurally has not done anything other than to enjoy the luck that they're enjoying right now because US is messing around with the tariff and the crisis that we have here. So
Okay.
what we have to be very careful about is what will happen when Ghana begins to spend on the economy. So far, only $10 billion has been allocated to roads, and that is inadequate. And if
Okay.
we should even look further, about $50 billion has
Hmm.
been on projects that has not been used yet. So we have projects that have 50 billion, what do you call it, 50 billion Ghana city that is in delayed process. So the
Okay.
moment we start spending on these activities, the demand for dollar is going to increase and the appreciation of dollar is going to stop. So I would say it's too early for us to get overcarried in
Mm-hmm.
terms of thinking that we're doing something amazing. No, listen,
Okay.
the economics is not magic. So you can't expect somebody 4 months to do something amazing in terms of appreciating the dollar when fundamentally nothing has changed. So that's
Yeah.
where we are.
Okay. So basically, the government or the Bank of Ghana or the government of Ghana hasn't done anything strategically. So, which means that the fall of the US dollar is the leading factor or is among the reasons why the Ghana cedi has appreciated, right?
Yes, about 60%, according to my research, about 60% of the reason why we're enjoying this is because of foreign reasons, the collapse of dollar. Actually,
Okay.
some have even suggested about 80% came from collapsing dollar, not the Ghanaian productivity. Because the
Wow.
only way you can sustain the dollar appreciation is
Mm.
if you can, number one, limit the cost of needs for dollars. Why do we
Mm.
need dollars? Why does dollar appreciate? That's the question you should ask yourself. If you want to know the value of
Mm.
dollar against the city, ask yourself why. What does dollar matter in this scenario? It's because most of our consumption are imported. So
Okay.
if you're importing goods, that means you need dollars to import the goods in. So until we switch the scenario where majority of our consumption is domestically done in terms
Mm.
of goods, then we cannot be able to sustain dollar. Dollar will never be what do you call it sustainable in terms of stability. That
Okay.
means we are always volatile to external pressures and shocks. So the reverse is true. Like I said, when America sneezes, we will catch pneumonia. Right now, that's exactly what we're enjoying because we're messing up in the US right now with
Mm.
tariff and then this incentive for production in the US because we have businesses in the US closing. Audi is taking production outside the US.
Mm.
We have Mazda CX7. They're gonna stop that plant from producing CS7 within the US shores. So these
Mm.
are all outflows of dollars from the
Okay.
US economy. And that's why we are enjoying what we're enjoying. So 80% of this is not because we've done anything strategically, other than the
Mm.
gold board. I give them a lot of credit on that. So I can't
Okay.
take away what they've done with gold board in order to ensure that we have reserves coming in. That's the
Yeah.
only good thing we've done. So Bank
Okay.
of Ghana has about 20%. 80% is external factors.
Mm. Yeah. Professor, I think there is a recent report or there is a recent thing that happened in Tanzania
Mhm.
whereby they have now banned the use of dollar domestically. And now they are doing all of their transactions domestically in their local currency. So do you think Ghana should have such a policy whereby we don't necessarily use the dollar as a means of transaction here at home? Because I think yesterday or 2 days ago, we saw a viral video whereby the former, is it the MPP member, NDC member, spending or giving gift of dollars. And there's a case whereby in Ghana, most people tend to hoard the dollar here at home. and people even spend dollar here at home. So do you think that is also a challenge for us, or do you think we should also divert or switch to using local currencies throughout?
Yeah, I think that's where we need to be. I've traveled other African countries. I was Egypt, and yes, and you're right, Tanzania. I was in Tanzania too, and that's the nationalistic approach we have to assume
Hmm.
until we can reduce the demand. You gotta understand the appreciation of dollars or appreciation of CDs and dollars, the relationship called the exchange rate, is based on demand and supply. It's basic economics.
Okay.
So if we stop using our currency and we
Hmm.
all are slowly switching inherently into using dollars, that means we putting pressure on the demand for dollars in the system. And that will only go to hurt your city.
Hmm.
So not only is it a sovereign issue, as a sovereignty, we have to maintain our sovereignty and declare that city is our currency and nothing else in terms of transaction within the shores of Ghana. It also a question of helping the city keep its value in terms of stability. The moment
Okay.
you walk away from doing that, then all you leaving your currency to is the volatility that we see, the ups and downs. So I've seen it in one of these countries. Yes, you said Tanzania. Yes,
Yeah.
that's true. And there's another country, I think Egypt also, where they do not allow any transaction in foreign currency, especially dollar.
Hmm.
Yes, it's in Egypt. Everything you have to convert and bring them their own currency. They don't care
Current.
how much you have.
Hmm.
All right, and this is where we need to be. So if you have an a public official dishing
Mm-hmm.
out cities, that's a cause for concern.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is a big issue right there, because
Yeah.
structurally we haven't done anything, and people are carrying around cities, and this person is exposed to billions of dollars every single day by virtue of his position.
Yeah.
So it's very disappointing for us to
Yeah.
get here as a
Yeah.
nation, and these are the future that we're looking into. Because I was just before the video came out, I was thinking about the future of Ghana as far as the youth and how President Mohammed has allowed the youth to participate.
In this
And I
administration.
asked
Yeah.
myself, it's very encouraging, because if you read any history or any civilization, even in Islam, you can talk about the Prophet and how he encouraged youth into the participation of the growth of Islam. Any
Yeah.
Christianity, the same thing. All the
Hmm.
disciples of Jesus were mostly under 30. So
Yeah.
if you look at history, it tells you that the youth are very critical. But the
Hmm.
question is, what behavior are we transferring to the youth?
Yeah.
If the experience they have is nothing, most of these kids have never worked in their life. So they
Hmm.
don't know the value of earning anything. All they've got is an exposure to billions of dollars that they've never even learned how to make a dollar.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the tricky situation. Yes, the youth are necessary, but do we have a system in place where they will learn the trade, at least for a little bit, so they will appreciate how these monies are made before they're
Mm.
exposed to this amount of money? Because it's a slopey slope that we're going. It's very
Yeah.
slippery where things are going right now, especially
Mm.
coming from the one of the most important positions in the nation.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're talking about dollars and exchange rate, and this guy has the key.
Professor, there is another question for you right now, and it is about inflation and
Mhm.
stability of the CD. Is there any direct correlation between inflation and the stability of the CD? Do you think inflation is contributing to the depreciation, or how the dollar is affecting the CD?
Under normal circumstance, we expect the appreciation of the city. That's why I'm telling you, fundamentally, nothing has been done. Because
Mm.
under normal circumstance, we expect the dollar, when city appreciates, it will transfer into falling prices, which is the inflation you're talking about.
Yeah.
But what we've seen is there is no correlation as it stands right now, because it's too soon to actually see the falling of prices across board. Because if most of the goods we consuming, right, requires dollar to bring them in, and dollar has become cheaper by the appreciation of cities, then we expect that the imports are going to be cheaper, which is the price of the goods and services we get from abroad. So
Okay.
we can correlate, until we can correlate that into the prices of everyday food, then nothing has happened. Because what we have is, despite the city's appreciation, inflation still remains elevated at 21.2%, according
Yeah.
to April 2025 trading economics data. All
Mm.
right. Basic structures are here. We have
Okay.
fuel prices, which for the first time is slowing down because
Mm.
of the government intervention. But electricity is still 14%.
Yeah.
Supply chain inefficiencies are still driving costs. So we haven't done anything structurally to
Mm.
ensure that we can transfer the gains from cities' performance into the daily prices of goods and services, hence the inflation you're talking about. So if
Yeah.
these two are not working together, then all we're doing is a stopgap policy. Yes, we
Okay.
need the foreign reserves, but
Mm.
if you're not using the foreign reserves to change the nature of imports, then you're not doing anything.
Okay. Okay. Professor, now let's look at Ghana's over-reliance on exports. To what extent does Ghana's reliance on imports after the long term affect the long-term sustainability of the city? Do you think the more we rely on foreign imports or imports rather, do you think
Mhm.
we need to change our policy in order to
Yeah.
help sustain the city?
Yes, that's exactly what I was saying when I said the structures,
Hmm.
right? Until we move away from, a system of importing everything, we import even chopsticks.
Yeah.
That's how disappointing it is that we import in almost everything that we consume.
Hmm.
So if like I was saying, we don't transfer the gains, like this opportunity we have
Okay.
to pursue some strategic industrialization efforts to
Hmm.
ensure that, number one, food, because the inflation we're talking about is mostly from food. If at this point we're still paying 7 Ghana city for a
Hmm.
kenke, then it's worrying. Kenke shouldn't be more than 1 Ghana city.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's basically maize. But what we have here is, under the
Hmm.
guidance of IMF, we've stopped thinking about how can we feed ourselves, because the first thing they did was to take the subsidies that we had for agriculture,
Hmm.
and that first year in 1980, 30% increase in maize prices,
Which are locally made here.
locally made here. Now where do they come from? Everything is almost imported. Burkina rice, all these things are coming from across the borders from Ghana.
Hmm.
At this point, Ghana should be food sufficient. We
Yeah.
feeding ourselves. So that reduces your inflation. You face
Hmm.
an inflation of 21%. When can we bring it down to 10% that the World Bank, the central bank wants? It's never going to get to 10% if you keep taking what the farmers need to
Away.
actually grow these foods. So we
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to walk away from import and move into industrialization and possibly feed ourselves and even export. Look at Burkina.
Hmm.
Burkina is now able to grow the rice and export. When can we do that?
Hmm.
It's not difficult. We just have to stop for a minute and be realistic about what we're dealing with.
Okay.
Until Ghana can look at itself and say, okay, we want to be food sufficient.
Hmm.
All right. By say 5 years' time, we will change this narrative. That alone will lessen the burden on the common Ghanaian. Because I always want us to think of one thing.
Hmm.
As a leader or a government, your customer is the Ghanaian citizen. I always want to look at things from business perspective because that's my forte when I look at business and economics. So I want us to think of Ghanaians as your customer. Where is the pains? Where is he suffering? And how can I lessen his suffering? Well, number one is food. How many people can eat 3 square meals in Ghana? And why is food so expensive? Because we import in everything, even the chopsticks.
Yeah.
What does it take to produce chopstick, for God's sake? Why can't we get youth to do this? This has to be like everybody's job at home. Any kid, any JSS kid should be able to just, shape a chopstick and make it money out of it. But we can't do this. So
and
I don't want us to get fooled with this numbers on the screen, Bloomberg this, Bloomberg. Those don't mean anything to the Ghanaian. Until we can transfer the gains to the person on the street, then you're doing focal. You're doing nothing. You just, overexciting yourself for no reason because structurally nothing has been done. Like Baumia said, if the fundamentals are broken, the exchange rate will expose you. So we will get there. So NTC shouldn't get carried away because it's true what he said and it still holds.
Yeah.
We've done nothing fundamentally. So the exchange rate, when US gets their acts together, US gets their acts together, it's just a temporal thing with a new leadership. But once we get going in the US, then we will face the realities in Ghana. So do we wait until that point? Now that we have the foreign reserves coming in, what do we do with the money? When can we stop doom so? These are the questions you should be asking yourself. Look at yourself and ask yourself, how is this a benefit for me? What does dollar appreciation, cedi appreciation has to do with my life when every day I'm facing doom so? 3 weeks ago, we couldn't do this program because there's no power. So when can we stop all these lying to ourselves and stop, making ourselves look so good on paper, especially when the West is singing your praises, run away. When the West is singing your praises, that means you're doing something wrong, not something right. Ghana number one, cedi appreciation. What has that got to do with the common person on the street? The situation hasn't changed on the street. So that's what I want us to look at. What has that got to do with the person on the street? He's still having to pay more electricity prices. Still, the Kenke is still 7 Ghana cedi. So when do we get to solve all these problems first?
Professor, thank you. Thank you very much for your contribution. We would like to know what measures can be taken to ensure the long-term stability of the cedi.
The long-term stability of the cedi is to look forward and face the reality. All right. So we should stop. What we have to do is to stop, fetishizing this exchange rate, because a strong cedi will mean nothing if prices don't fall, right? Target inflation, not just the forex rates. Invest strategically, not just sparingly. So austerity that we pursuing because of IMF without growth is a suicide. When do we build our ports, roads, and factories and accept perpetual dependency? Why do we have to do that? We have to break the import addiction that we talked about. Why does Ghana still import tomatoes, rice, and even toothpicks? Real currency strength comes from production, not reserves. Transfer the reserves into production. Let's pursue energy sector reforms. And you should also know that no economy will thrive with erratic power and rising tariffs. We should fix it and stop pretending. We're talking about 24-hour economy, but you can't even supply the lights 24 hours. So where's the economy? So stop lying to yourself. So we have to ensure that the cedi's momentum is not just a flash in the pan, and that we must, number one, balance the fiscal discipline with strategic investment. That's one. 2, strengthen domestic forex resilience, where we diversify the export beyond gold and oil. So we boost, cocoa production, processing. All of these things has to be value addition activities that we must pursue. So there's a lot of work with the gains that we have. And like I said the last time, we must encourage diaspora remittances through digital channels to stabilize the forex inflows? Why don't we, as a system, encourage remittances to go through the Bank of Ghana system, so we don't depend on additional external reserves to be able to provide the needs for dollars? Until we can do that, we're not going to be sustainable. And then we have to tackle the structural inflation drivers, like I mentioned earlier. There's a lot more contribution to inflation than just imports. So we should look at reducing energy sector inefficiencies to lower electricity costs, improve agriculture supply chains, value addition to curb food inflation. And then we have to look at our monetary policy as a whole. Because if we talk about monetary policy, what we're pursuing so far is not doing the job. Okay, so we have to, yes.
Yeah, Professor, speaking of monetary policy, what is the current monetary policy stance of the Bank of Ghana, and how is it affecting the strength of the cedi?
Okay, so that's a good question, and that was something I wanted to come to. So let's look at the monetary policy as pursued by the Bank of Ghana. Bank of Ghana is pursuing what we call the QPM model. Okay. The QPM referring to quarterly projection model. And all it does is, it's a model that is good, but it has a lot of blind spot.
Okay.
And strategically, or you could call it a neo-Keynesian semi-structural model, which means that it's only targeting inflation. So it just prioritizes price stability via interest rate adjustment. That's all we do. So it's a short-term demand management approach, forecasting output gaps and forex pressures. So basically, what they're doing is to look at inflation and how to manage the forex industry, the money industry. Okay. But these are the gaps. The critical omission is that, number one, it doesn't have any link to our long-term growth.
Okay.
So potential GDP is what we call it. Or another word is full employment. When do we say that Ghana has achieved full employment? Meaning every possible person looking for a job can possibly get a job. Central Bank of Ghana doesn't have that in their model. Okay. So they're only looking at inflation and helping the forex market. So it focuses on closing the output gap, which is the demand side of money, but does not model how to expand the potential GDP, which is the supply side. So we're only working on the demand.
Okay.
We're not the supply, because we need the supply to grow. Every country can only grow if they can achieve the marriage between the two, demand and supply, achieving it at a high level. So our monetary policy fights inflation, but does not systematically drive long-term job creation or productivity. Okay. So we have number two, what we call the weak integration of full employment objectives, where Ghana's natural rate of unemployment is likely far higher than the official estimate, because there's structural labor market inefficiencies that we have. So the QPM that we have in Ghana doesn't optimize maximum employment. So even when we're talking about disinflation, what does it actually mean? Does it mean that the appreciation of the cedi will lead to people getting more jobs? And that's the question we have to ask. Because at the end of the day, it's about the Ghanaian citizen. That's our customer. If you the government, you central bank, your customer is the Ghanaian citizen, not the forex, not the forex market, not the money market. Okay. The Ghanaian should be your focus, because in the US, the Federal Reserve has what we call the dual mandate. They're not only fighting inflation, they are reducing unemployment as well. Okay. Ghana, the model of Ghana doesn't bring the two together. Ghana only looks at inflation. There is no fighting inflation that will lead to growth of the economy to reduce unemployment. We don't have the three coming together. So in the US, the Federal Reserve has a mandate to ensure that our unemployment is 4%. Okay. And inflation is not more than 2%. The central bank in Ghana, under the QPM model, is looking at 6 to 10% inflation, no connection to unemployment as far as the data shows. So we are overlooking fiscal monetary coordination for growth, where the QPM only acknowledges fiscal policy, but does not model optimal infrastructure investment path. And that's the disconnection that we have. Until we can channel the investment path to raise potential GDP, then we have a problem. So what we want to see is, if Ghana doubles rose energy infrastructure, how much could GDP grow? The QPM doesn't have it.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So we stuck in what we call the low growth equilibrium. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Because nobody is looking at that. There is not a single official. You can call central bank, you can call Ghana government, Ministry of Finance, who can tell me what the projection of our growth is in terms of long term. They only want to achieve 5% GDP growth. What does it mean to unemployment numbers? How many percentage of unemployment do we want to reduce the growth of 6% into? How do we channel that conversation of, okay, if we want to grow 6%, we're going to pursue these sectors in order to ensure that we reduce unemployment by some 7 or 8%. That's how you have to look at it. So you're looking at inflation, unemployment, and the growth of the economy in long term. So until we can connect these three in a single conversation, then we don't seem to know what is it that is our focus. Our focus shouldn't be only inflation, but the whole three coming together, because at the end of the day, it's the human cost that you're looking at.
Yeah. Professor, we do understand that this is a true reality, and it's a sad reality. Looking at how the number of unemployment is rising, at the same time, inflation is also somehow not stable. But Professor, do you think the government's borrowing also influences inflation?
Of course, because that's a monetary policy tool that is necessary to either inflate the prices of goods and services or reduce, inflation by him, increasing interest rates. So the monetary policy, that's why I want us to look at it as, when do you go in to borrow? All right. So we use the open market operations to do that as a government. So strategically, this is not something you do on a daily basis. It's a monetary policy tool. So if you're going to pursue growth activity, you have to understand that you will need to borrow more money to fund all these projects, right? When you borrow to fund the projects, most likely it will lead to inflationary pressures. But at what point do you say, okay, it's necessary for us to move forward? The borrowing or debt in itself is not a bad thing. The problem is, what do you do with it? How many jobs did we create with the money that we borrowed? That's why I said it has to be in a single conversation. The government can borrow as much as they want. US, we in debt more than you think. Trillions of dollars. Very soon we will go. If there's any number beyond trillion, we will even go there, but nobody cares, because as long as people are being fed, people are getting jobs, you could talk all you want about debt, but nobody even give a damn about it, because at the end of the day, people are able to live their lives.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to. So we have to understand who is the customer here. I always use this business approach, because as a businessman, I'm always looking at my customer. What can I do to service my customer? If the nation understands, or the government or the leadership understand their customer is the Ghanaian citizen, your focus is, everything I'm going to do has to translate into improving the lives of that person on the street.
Yeah.
If that's the focus, then you can be in debt and nobody should even worry about it. All right. But we don't have an economy that's robust, because our debt includes a foreign debt, which is the critical stage that Ghana has. So most of the money that we make in terms of GDP has to service debt. And that's the cycle where we have to come out on. In the US, their debt is financed by the bonds that they sell. All right. So they don't owe any single individual any money per se. When we say U.S. owes China a lot of money, it's not they went and borrowed from China like we're doing from IMF. That's not the type of borrowing that they did. U.S.
Okay.
sells bonds to China and take the money and finance their projects, or any other international country for that matter. So we
Mm.
sell bonds to get the money. Why can't US sell bonds and Ghana can't sell bonds outside to get foreign currency? It's because we don't have the structures. Until we can get to a point where we have economic structure that's robust, industrialized, economy that's booming locally, you don't have what it takes to get foreign currency in without necessarily going to IMF to borrow.
Yeah.
Because what we do to finance our projects is borrowing from IMF is very costly because they handcuff us all the time. Right now, the deal we have has led to 14% increase in electricity. Is that good for the Ghanaian?
No.
No. So what kind of system are we running?
Mm.
I can take it right now at 14% if the money can be used to create jobs. But we yet to see the benefits of all this money we've borrowed from IMF for so many years.
Yeah, Professor, I would like to chip in with this. There's a report which shows that Ghana loses millions of dollars annually to uncompleted projects. How can the government ensure that borrowed funds are used efficiently and transparently?
I think I've been mentioning this term for some time now.
Mm.
And until we have a model like that in place, that will ensure independence of governing of the economy from the daily politics,
Okay.
then what you just said is going to continue to happen. Because we have to separate the governance of the economy from the politics, which means we have to have an independent economic body
Mm.
that is ensuring that they are the ones monitoring these projects. They are actually the ones leading our growth plan, if we have any plan. There's Vision 2020. There's another one. We have Economic Commission as it exists today that was formed in 2021, but their role is advisory. That wouldn't work. And the political leadership has the mandate to appoint a chairman for that. So that means they've been politically aligned.
Yeah.
And that's why we're suffering. We
Mm.
need a commission, an independent body that is mandated under the same act to be independent and exist regardless of who's in power.
Mm-hmm.
So what that will allow you to do is to pursue long-term projects where the losses, the bleeding of money into uncompleted projects will stop, because these guys, their focus is not on what I can do for NDC because they brought me into position.
Yeah.
No.
What's the
If I'm
nation,
in
right?
that position, my job is for Ghana. So
Mm-hmm.
this project, we're going to build this road from A to B, point A to B. It would take us maybe 3 years. Guess what? That's all they do. They don't care who comes into power. They have the mandate to secure the funds, and Bank of Ghana will ensure that the funds are disbursed to them, not to the Ministry of Finance. They will ensure this transaction is going on and these projects are completed. They will
Okay.
appoint their own leadership. Once the government set it up and appoint who the chairman is, maybe now we will need that. But in the future, the revolving of leadership is going to be among the committee that we form to lead the growth. That has nothing to do with politics. It's
Mm.
technocrats, it's technical people,
Mm.
business leadership that is coming together to decide where we go. And that will stop these uncompleted projects that we have everywhere. Because
Okay.
right now, look at what is going to happen. NDC will do the best they could if they
Mm-hmm.
start going, because they haven't started spending anything. All they do is checking the box of we launched this, but nothing has been done yet. So
Yeah.
once they start going and achieve whatever they possibly can achieve, who's going to ensure that it's continuing? The projects that are good. We don't have a system to ensure that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
the problem. And we sit here for 68 years and we jubilating over appreciation of cities. That doesn't mean anything to anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much, Professor. Professor, we do understand that the government is borrowing up to now. Even the previous administration had to strike a deal before this new administration. And looking at our land, our forest, our natural and mineral resources, do you think, how can Ghana reduce its reliance on borrowing while still meeting developmental goals? Is that possible?
Yeah, it's possible. We just have to seek alternatives. Like the last time I mentioned a couple of alternatives, even we can start with looking at the gold gains that we have. We have a good gains with gold board and then whatever reserves we have. What we have to do is, can we use that as a leverage to bring
Mm.
foreign currency in to fund the projects other than going for World Bank?
Okay.
Because right now we don't have a lot of money that the World Bank is going to give us anyway. There's only few left from what Akufo-Addo administration did in terms of the deal that he had with the World Bank, and only limited amount is left. I believe the last time I checked, it's not even up to $200 billion that we're going to get from them. And the
Mm.
projects and the problem we have is so enormous. We will probably need about $1 trillion for us to really get the economy going if we are serious. But the problem we have is we have to come and think about alternatives so we can walk away from borrowing. We might
Okay.
need to start what we already have and make sure that we invest strategically into value addition activities so we can have what we call the trickling down effect, the money that will come back from,
Okay.
for example, trying to feed ourselves. It will reduce the inflationary pressure. At the same time, if we're able to export, we get the
Mm.
foreign reserves coming in. So that's area number one. Number
Okay.
two, we can also look at alternative funding partners. I
Mm.
mentioned the diaspora remittances that comes in at $4.6 billion.
Okay.
How can Bank of Ghana place itself so all these remittances is channeled through them? All right, to allow us to get advantage of the $4.6 billion that the foreign, those of us abroad, are bringing into your economy. Number two, have we
Mm.
looked at number three? Have we looked at the diaspora to ask the question of how can we have an investment structure that will entice these guys from outside to bring their
Mm.
money into Ghana? We leaving
Okay.
money on the table.
Mm.
People are sitting on billions. Even the Ghanaian community here, they want to invest in Ghana, but they don't know how to start. They don't know what to do. People have
Mm.
money, especially now that the US economy is kind of back and forth. People are just holding on to what they have. Do we
Mm.
provide alternative to say, okay, you know what? We figured this out. We want you to come and buy the bonds of
Mm.
the Ghana government so
Mm.
the Ghana government can then get the money to start funding these projects. All right. So there's an opportunity there. And then there
Yeah.
is, other relationship like the Islamic finances, some Islamic banks, zero interest borrowing. We have to
Mm.
explore that. All right. Agriculture, Africa Development Bank. Those are another good alternative.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So these are all areas of funding that we can see. But
Mm.
what is critical is we have to come up with a plan that when we even borrow at the interest rates such as what we have with IMF, can we use the money in the industry that would generate a trickling down effect and benefits? The
Mm.
ROI, what is the return on investment for taking that money and multiplying it in the economy and giving us the opportunity? The only way is to use the money, pursue an activity that will
Mm.
lead into value addition so you export and get more money, like cocoa. Why can't we establish cocoa processing? So we send finished goods. And when you
Mm.
export finished goods, you get foreign reserves coming in.
Mm. Yeah.
So we have to be strategic. Gold refinery. In 2 years, Burkina Faso is refining gold. We've
Mm.
had gold since eternity, before even the colonial masters came.
Mm-hmm.
We've not, for a minute, thought about refining gold.
Hmm.
We selling gold. We excited about what? Do you know that South Africa, because it exports a finished gold product, earns 300% more than we earning and we excited.
Mm.
We sleeping. We not even awake yet. Until
Yeah.
we wake up to start processing these goods that we have in gold. Cocoa, why am I buying a chocolate in America on the shelf that has a Ghana flag, but it's not done in Ghana?
Hmm. Yeah.
Why can't we be the only source of shipping out our own chocolate? Why is the chocolate being done in Belgium? We have to be serious. These
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
are serious. So I don't know. We gotta be serious for once and start asking the questions that you asking. So I really appreciate the opportunity to discuss about these things.
Yeah, Professor, thank you very much. So basically, we are lacking the processing or the secondary uh, sector. And I mean, this is true because we produce cocoa, chocolate, but we can't find the most cheapest chocolate here. Even the chocolate here are very expensive. And meanwhile,
Mhm.
we are a cocoa producing country, which is very unfortunate. And Professor, speaking of Burkina Faso, what lessons can Ghana learn from other countries in managing inflation and borrowing and spending? Because we learned that an organization like the BRICS does businesses in their local currencies. And sometimes you notice that even China can be an alternative to the IMF because IMF is giving us loans with higher interest rates. Meanwhile, China is giving us loan with a lower interest rate. So, what lessons can Ghana learn from other countries who are trying to find alternative route to instead of the IMF and the World Bank, and in terms of managing inflation and national spending?
There's a lot of lessons. Number one is your economic sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
If we can disassociate ourselves from all these powers and institutions that has actually handcuffed us, until we can walk away or understand or come away from that with a different mindset where we are calling the own shot, we have to have a mutual benefits. And
Mm.
I always ask that we place the Ghanaian as the focus, not the bearer of the burden of these negotiations.
Okay.
Because so far, what we've done with these organizations is to have a relationship with institution that transfers all the burden onto the Ghanaian citizen. If we
Mm.
cannot change that narrative, then we cannot never grow as people. If you look at what is happening to Burkina, because that's
Mm.
very recent, and we all seeing the transformation, is
Mm.
the fact that they decided to take care of their own, the Burkina Bay. They want the Burkina Bay to be able to afford food and live a decent life.
Mm.
So let's start with that. It's not difficult to look at yourself and ask, we all know the suffering in the system. Let's not
Yeah.
lie to ourselves.
Mm.
Everybody is going through this. Everybody knows someone. If it's not you, you know someone who's suffering that cannot feed themselves.
Mm.
So when can we have an honest conversation and say enough is enough? From now on, all the relationship we're going to pursue has to center around improving the lives of that person on the street,
Mm.
ensuring that we can feed ourselves. Kids can go to school free.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm.
Free, it shouldn't be a burden. We have to be able to educate ourselves, all right, without putting a burden on the Ghanaian citizen.
Okay.
All right. We have to be able to do that. So if we can look at ourselves that way, then there's a lot of models. You have Burkina.
Mm.
Burkina has started feeding itself, processing tomatoes, all of these in the process offering jobs. Yesterday, they improving the pay of the civil servants,
Yeah. And they actually,
reducing the pay of the parliamentarians. The politicians are taking a
yeah,
pay cut.
yeah, that is true.
Ghana is doing the reverse. So that tells you the system we're running. Ghana
Yeah.
is keeping adding to the parliamentarians that sit and just do yeah and all that. And then the citizen, the civil servant, cannot feed
Mm.
himself because he's facing a 14% tariff. So cut
Yeah.
the tariff first, give him power 24/7, and let's start there.
Mm.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
models. Just go to Burkina and do your, steady still, and bring it home. It's not difficult. And you'll find partners that are willing to work for you. We can look at China. We have to change the negotiation if it's not in our favor. Whoever we're going to talk to, we have to call the shots, because I'm telling you, we have the potential. The resources are here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we even want to be strategic and be more up to date with technology, we will have a digital economy where the gold reserves is used to back up a digital currency. Ghana coin, we can launch a Bitcoin Ghana coin and bring all the foreign money into the system without having to borrow from anyone.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways we can do this, only when we're serious. But we don't even understand where the pains are, because we think it's all about some numbers. Bloomberg is going to say Ghana is doing this. No, we don't need that. Who's talking about Burkina Faso's numbers? Why wouldn't Bloomberg say Burkina Faso has grown to like 50, 68%? They don't want that, because that's not the model they want. They subscribe to Ghana's model because Ghana is always compliant. IMF said this, we do it. IMF said this, we do it. So we look good on paper. But the Ghanaian is suffering. That's where we need to go. We got to think, people. We cannot grow like this.
Yeah.
Don't let them just keep tickling you and think that you're doing something good. We've done nothing here.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your input. And this is the reality that we are facing today, that Africa has potential. As you said, even the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, said himself that Africa has a great potential to be a global superpower. And I think we recently had a seat in, I think, G20 or G7, no, G20. And it is unfortunate because we are the producers. We are producing all of these mineral and natural resources. But when it comes to decision making, we are not the one calling the shots. We hope we improve. And I would like to admonish our audience to like and share this program, as we are holding discussions right now on the monetary policy and currency management. Professor, I would like to view our comment section. Right now, we have our CEO, Imam Firdaus Laden. He said, very informative and educative program. Thank you, Dr. Abbass. And Bilkis Hamidu Tuli also said, mashallah. Oh, thank you very much for your comments. Professor, there's a question from a brother called Hamza Mohammed. He said that, what is the relationship between inflation and unemployment?
Interesting question.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's a monetary policy tool. And like I just described how Ghana views its monetary policy, and they only target inflation. But in other jurisdictions, like in the US, we look at all three together.
Okay.
So when you are growing your economy, like a GDP growth, you're anticipating that the growth of the economy long-term, that's the supply side, which Ghana ignores, will lead to reduction in unemployment. Because what is in the supply side? If you're looking at the supply side, is improving productivity. What does it take to produce more? It takes human and physical capital, what we call the capital deepening. So that means you have to educate your citizens. You have to be able to produce your own machines for the most part, or machinery into production activities like agriculture, industrialize it. All right. If we do that, in the process, we will increase the number of people that will get jobs. So the supply side is critical. That's why we call it the long run supply. The long run aggregate supply is what drives the economy forward. So when we do this, it will reduce unemployment. But to do that, it requires us to look at the demand side, which is what Ghana is only focused. Improving the demand side can lead into increase in overall aggregate demand, which can bring inflationary pressures. But if you want to fight inflation, then what you have to do is to increase your supply, reduce the unemployment, and reduce the prices of goods. An example, typical realistic example. Imagine a situation where Ghana is producing most of the goods that we are importing right now. If we were to produce like toothpicks, let's just take toothpicks.
Okay.
The simplest thing that you just have to sit 20 minutes and shape with a knife. That's all. We can give it to a JSS kid and he can do this.
Yeah.
All right. So if we replace the production of that good, how many jobs have we created if we put this as a project for JSS people? How many jobs have we increased? And in so doing, we have limited the cost of price of chopsticks. Simple example, because you take it away from the foreign company and give it to your local company.
Yes, okay.
And that reduces the price, because if we do it locally, it's supposed to be cheaper. So that's the relationship with unemployment and inflation. So you grow your employment with the mindset of driving the prices down. So when the supply is moving to the right, that reduces the burden on prices.
Yeah.
So that is how you can relate the two. But Ghana is
Okay.
not looking at it holistically. That is where we lack it right now. Ghana doesn't
Yeah.
have a model that looks at it like that.
Thank you very much, Professor. There is another question from a sister, Rukaya. This is a direct message. She said, can we pay off our debt? You know, looking at how we keep borrowing, change of administration, the next government will also borrow. Can we ever pay off our debt? I think in the Baumia and Akufo-Addo administration, we noticed that they did some kind of gold exchange with
Oil.
cash or something. Yeah, gold for
Gold for
oil. Yeah,
oil, yeah.
gold for oil exchange. So can we pay off our debt as a nation, or would you also recommend transaction of exchanging mineral resources for a different natural or mineral resources?
No, I don't subscribe to gold for oil. I don't subscribe to exchange of resources. I said any resource that you export in a raw state is leaving money on the table.
Okay.
The only time we can finance ourselves and pay off the debt, I can guarantee you, with a good strategy, in 10 to 15 years, we pay all our debt because we have gold to leverage. If we can refine gold and increase the returns on gold to 300% like South Africa is doing because they're refinery,
Okay.
then we can have enough revenue to offset the debt. But right now we are, in a tight situation with IMF where they require every little money we have to service the debt, and that's crippling the economy. So until we can do value addition production for cocoa, gold, in terms of all the materials we have, bauxite, anything we have, we just have to add value and sell it as a finished product. You can grow your economy and sell and avoid debt if you sell it at a raw primary state.
Okay.
So that's where we have to look at. We have to add value. When we add value and we sell finished products, we will gain more money. Right now, Dubai is making more money than we are in gold because of their jewelry industry. And Dubai doesn't have gold.
Yeah.
What kind of people are we? We have the gold and Dubai is making money off our gold. And we're sitting here thinking that we have an appreciation of Cedi, so we have to run the street and jubilate. No, that's a joke. We gotta wake up, refine the oil, build the jewelry industry in Obuasi and all those Western region cities. Build the cities, make it vibrant, make it a tourist center. Because we have the gold, we refine it, we finish it there. We produce the jewelry. Everybody will run to Ghana to buy their jewelry because it's authentic. Can we establish that kind of market and give the youth jobs to do? Because everybody, we encouraging foreign expatriates and people coming in as tourism to see what is it that we're doing. That's amazing. And that's a job for people on the street. It's easy to create these jobs if we are strategic. An economy that's thriving is not an economy that you have to call and get a job. An economy that you wake up and you find something. You see a loophole, you see a gap. There's a lot of foreigners coming to the Western region. They need direction. I'm going to set up my company to be a tour guide or something like that. That's a job you create for yourself. Do we have an economy that allows that? It's a simple thing. In America, you don't wake up to look for government to give you a job. You just look around you and see what is it that's lacking. You can walk in and ask, oh, there's a restaurant here, there's this, there. Can we have an economy that's thriving like that?
That is a
So
challenge.
the private sector is leading everything because the opportunities are everywhere. And that's the kind of economy we need to encourage. Just add value. You add value, you make more money. You make 300% more than what we're making in selling gold at the raw state right now. We're all excited about what gold is doing. That's step number one. Because now we're getting premium pricing for our gold, which is a good thing. But can we even make it 300% more? Yes, if we refine it.
Okay.
So, and that will solve your debt crisis. We pay the debt. Didn't Burkina pay their debt? How many years did it take? And that's just one person. How
Yeah.
many technocrats do we have? How many economists do we have in
Mm.
Ghana? A lot of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We gotta be serious.
Yeah, Professor, thank you very much for your input, and we do really appreciate your time and giving us the highlights and a brief understanding of the situation. I think the most important thing here is the average Ghanaian is not fully aware of this CD appreciation. They're out there celebrating and jubilating. So now we would like to switch to our local language so that the average Ghanaian watching us who doesn't understand English would also get a brief or a hint of what is the true situation or the nature of the city appreciation, because right now they are out there saying that okay, the government is doing well, but now we have learned that strategically or in practically the Bank of Ghana hasn't done anything. These are all by the foreign external factors. So Professor, we would like to switch to Hausa language. Jama'a masu sauraron mu, ina jin ko kaga muka fara wannan shiri da Professor mu Professor Abbass Mohammed ya muna bayani game da wato yanda yanayi na CD. Ina da sakaran jiya ko kwana hudu da ya wuce mun samu labari cewa kamar CD ya komo kasa da dolan. Muna so Professor ya muna wato bayani a takaice me yasa wannan CD ya zo ya komo 13, domin kwanaki mun ga cikin wancan government ya zo ya kai 17 16 da sauransu, yanzu ya komo 13. Shin wani kokari ne ko wani iyawa ne ko wasu wato masu handle ko manage economics aka kawo su muna wani aiki, ko dai me ya kawo wannan abin ya zo haka, sannan ko wani irin karatu kuma za a ba yan uwa masu sauraron mu game da wato yanayi na CD da muka gani, kuma wance yanayi na tafiyar da kasa da muke ciki da wannan lokaci. Yasa Professor an ka shirya muna so a yi ma jama'a bayani kan wanga lamari da muka samu kanmu a ciki.
To, assalamu alaikum, barkanmu da yau, barkanmu da wannan lokaci, kuma muna yi da Walkiya TV da shugabanninsu godiya da daman da suke bamu kullum muna tattaunawa kan ci gaban ƙasa. So mun samu kanmu cikin wani lokaci da ya kawo wato wani abin nan jin daɗi cikin abin nan tafiyar da garin, which in all honesty ya kamata mu ce abu ne mai kyau. Ka gane, abu ne mai kyau kasancewa CD ya hau kan dala. To da abin da tambayoyin da ke nan ne me ya kawo wannan. So mun tattauna muka gano cewa number one, abin da mafi muhimmancin abin da ya kawo shine abin da ke faruwa US. Dan US shine garin da ke tafiyar da zancen kudin kowane gari. So kasancewa US suna cikin wani matsala da suka samu kansu na shugaba ya sa kan cikin wasu halayya, na farko kara taxes ko tariff kan kayan da ake kawo a cikin US, sannan wasu ababa da yake ya kai ma yanzu akwai companies da dama da na mention kamar Mazda da Acura za su dauki, Audi za su dauki production su din su fit da shi US ga. To irin wayanda ababa shi ke sa ka ga dolan ya fado, don mutane suna gudun US an shiga cikin China yanzu, ana so a ga wani abu za a samu, wani amfani za a samu cikin wannan economy. So kasancewa mu nan da muke US ya rikice, shi ya kawo dama abin nan demanding wato neman dala ya rage, amfanin da ake yi na neman dala ya rage. So shi ya kawo yau kuka ga sidin ya hau. Sannan na biyu, a gaskiya gwamnati ba mu cewa bai yi kokari ba, shi ma ya yi nashi kokari, shine mai gold boarding da suka kawo. Shi gold boarding da suka kawo abin da yake yi ne ya kawo muna pricing gold mai nauyi da ya fi yanda da yake. So kasancewa sun yi wannan ya kawo mana amfanin wato kudaddadin da ke shigowa na dala wajen sadda gold ya karu. Don goldin da kanshi an kara abin nan production shi ya karu from 9 to 30 tons. So which means abin da muke samu amfanin sadda goldin ya karu to shi kuma ya kawo yau muna da dollars da yawa cikin gida da zai sa in ka zo neman dala bai kawo mana pressure wajen price. Da abin da ya kamata mu fahimci ne aka ce dala ya hau ko ya sauka yana fitowa ga mutane ko adadin dolan da ake nema a yi amfani da shi idan kawo kaya ko a yi exchanging din. Ya abin nan availability ko kuma supplying dinsa yana match da abin da ake nema. To in supplying ya yi rauni shi ke kawo dola ya hau. So yanzu kasancewa mun samu waɗanga dalilai biyu ya kawo dola number 1 ya je kasa saboda abin da US ke yi. Number 2 saboda kasancewa abin nan gold board ya kawo amfani gold ya bar dola da yawa ya shigo shi zai sa ka ga ko nawa kuke nema za a iya baku to wannan zai sa dola ya saura kasa to so abin da muke ciki kenan sannan na uku gwamnati da kanshi an sa mai ka'ida na wajen rashin kashe kudi so in kun lura gwamnatin NDC da ya zo cikin abin nan ka'idan da IMF suka ba shi bai iya ya kashe wa'ansu kudaddadi har yanzu tukunna. So akwai kaman gine-ginen da ya kamata ya yi ko kuma infrastructure kamar roads, highways, ports da sauransu da ya kamata yi don an rika fa yanzu. So until mun fara yin wa'annan ababa ya kamata mu yi hanzari kan cewa abin nan fa abin tabbatacce ne ko dai wani abu ne daban. So an sanni wani abu ne daban da ban da gold board da abin da central bank ke yi na wajen interest rate ba abin da aka yi asali da zai kawo mana amfanin ragowan wanga dala. Don kana son ka san wannan gaskiya ne tambayi kanka yanzu dala ya fadi wani abu ya rage cikin abin da kake sai abincinka pricing ya rage ne. Kudin wuta har yanzu an ƙara. So until kai ka juya wannan ya zama abin amfani ba abin wani jubilating ba ne abin da ya kamata mu kiyaye ne mu ba kanmu lokaci mu ga me gwamnatin zai yi don wata hudu ba wanda zai zo ya ce min ya juya economy wata hudu shi dai kare kafin yanda yake tukuna sannan gaba shi mu ga abin da zai faru to mun tattauna kan wani ababa da yawa da ba dama da za mu yi abin da mu juya shi cikin Hausa amma ina fatan mutane sun fahimci abin da ake ciki har yanzu.
Na masha Allah Professor muna godiya sosai da wannan lokaci ka samu kai wannan tattaunawa. Muna fatan labari ya kai ga wato masu kallon sauraron mu suma irin wannan bayani da ka mana don the most important shine the average Ghanaian ya understand system nan don wani lokaci ka ga ana karanta national budget ana batun depreciation ana batun net import da net export don gane bai san abin da ake fadiwa ba so inda yanda kake yi ka zo ka yi da English a kare kuma a yi ko da takaice da Hausa ya yi very very important muna godiya Allah saka da alheri. Professor ina jin wato your final submission what is your final submission based on this topic?
To abin da zan ce ko kuma in English to summarize it up abin da zan call ne to abin nan we have to be optimistic. Kagane, we have to look at the city's appreciation as a welcome development, but it is not yet a victory.
Yeah.
Without structural reforms, prudent fiscal management, and sustained investment in productivity, this momentum could fade as quickly as it has appeared.
Okay.
So for the common Ghanaian, the true economic stability will mean, one, lower inflation that actually reduces your market prices.
Okay.
More jobs from thriving private sector, reliable infrastructure that cut business costs.
Okay.
So as we proceed to take this to the street, ask the question, is the Bank of Ghana monetary policy sufficient to sustain this momentum? Two, can fiscal policy strike the balance between debt sustainability and growth? What structural reforms are needed to make the city's strength permanent? The stakes are high, but with right policies, Ghana can turn this moment of optimism into lasting economic transformation. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you very much, Professor. Dear cherished viewers, we are out of time and hope to see you next week on this show, the Economic Forum. And we held discussions on monetary policy and currency management, how the city can sustain its momentum. Do like the program, like, share, and also leave a comment at the comment section below. Until next week, it is bye for now. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.